The wedding reception is in full swing. Mark and Lena are sitting at the head table. Mark forces a wide smile for the cameras, but his eyes are cold and fixed. Lena thought she was marrying a meal ticket. I knew she was marrying a man who had already planned her eviction. I'd watched her for 6 months, confirming the texts, tracking the hotel receipts, letting her dig her own grave deeper. But planning the legal end was the easy part. Tonight, I needed the emotional closure. I needed to look her in the eye and watch it shatter. Chris, the best man, takes the microphone for his speech. He looks nervous but smug. To Mark and Lena. I've known Mark since freshman year, and I can tell you, the Mark before Lena, that Mark was just waiting. But when I introduced him to Lena... Chris pauses, looking only at Lena, his smile lingering. Lena shifts uncomfortably, avoiding Mark's gaze. Chris, when I introduced him to Lena, everything changed. I've always loved the fire in Lena, her passion. And I know deeply that Mark is the best man for her now. Cheers to the long road they've already walked. The crowd claps politely. Mark slowly raises his glass, his hand perfectly steady, but the veins in his neck bulge. Lena stares down at her plate. The long road they've already walked. He wasn't talking about me. He was talking about them. That was the final, arrogant insult I needed. The facade was about to burn. The photographer calls for the cake cutting. Mark stands next to Lena, knife in hand, ready for the ritual. Lena whispers something to her maid of honor, then excuses herself, heading for the service exit. Lena, whispering to Mark, I'll be right back. Just need to powder my nose. Mark watches her go. He doesn't move. Chris slides his arm around Mark's shoulder. Chris, tough guy. Don't worry, she's all yours now. Mark slams the cake knife down on the table, the silver clattering loudly. He spins, grabbing Chris by the tie and pulling him close, his face inches away. No, she's all yours, and you can have the debt, the shame, and the black eye that comes with it. Mark shoves Chris away hard. Chris stumbles back into a waiter, who drops a tray of champagne. Chaos erupts on the edges of the main floor. I wasn't going to let them sneak off to the pantry. If they wanted a moment, they were going to have it in front of the entire family. I walked out not with a camera, but with pure intent. Mark strides through the service door and finds Lena waiting impatiently in a dark hallway, texting furiously. She looks up, startled. Lena's face turns pale as she sees the raw fury in Mark's eyes. Lena, forcing a calm tone, Mark, what are you doing? The guests are waiting for the cake. The cake? You think this is about the cake? This is about every lie you told me while I signed the papers that annul this joke of a wedding. Chris rushes through the service door, rubbing his neck where Mark grabbed him. Chris, hey, leave her alone. Mark pivots with startling speed and lands a direct, gut-wrenching punch to Chris's jaw. Chris collapses against the drywall, stunned. Mark stands over him, chest heaving. Mark, you parasitic rat. You rode my coattails, took my money, and ruined my life for a decade. You don't touch her. She's my property to destroy. Lena screams and scrambles back against the wall, covering her mouth. Lena, sobbing, you monster. I needed the money. He's just a friend. Mark, shaking his head, a single tear of pure rage running down his cheek. A friend who has the encryption key to the apartment you shared before I met you? A friend who promised you a cut of my assets. Get up. Both of you. We're going back to the party. Mark grabs Lena by the arm, dragging her back through the service door and onto the main dance floor. Guests turn, whispering, stunned by the sight of the disheveled, sobbing bride and the bloodied best man trailing behind. Mark, shouting over the confused murmur, stop the music. Stop the music. The DJ cuts the sound. Mark shoves Lena onto the head table platform and strides to the microphone, his voice booming and cracking with emotion. Mark, thank you all for celebrating my annulment. This marriage, as a legal entity, ends tonight. Why? Because the bride, Lena Vance, is a calculating fraud. She and her lover, the best man, have conspired to violate the terms of my prenuptial agreement since before I proposed. The crowd is silent, utterly shocked. Mark points to Chris, who is still leaning dizzily on a pillar near the entrance. Mark, I saw enough years ago, but I waited. I waited until every document was in place. I waited until I knew she would leave this church with absolutely nothing. A professional-looking woman, dressed in a sharp suit, steps out from the crowd. This is Mark's lawyer. Mark, into the microphone, Madam Solicitor, if you please. Lawyer, voice clear, holding a clipboard. Lena Vance. I am serving you with notice of annulment based on evidence of pre-contractual fraud and egregious violation of Clause 4, Section B of the prenuptial agreement. All joint accounts are frozen. The gifts, the rings, and the dress are the sole property of the party of the first part, Mark Sterling. Your credit cards have been canceled. Lena collapses against the table, screaming a mix of obscenities and despair. Mark looks down at her, the rage gone, replaced by bleak satisfaction. Mark, into the microphone, tired but final. She gets nothing. Not a ring. Not a cent security. Please escort Mrs. Vance and Mr. Hayes off the premises. They are no longer guests. Lena is pulled away, struggling and weeping hysterically in her ruined white dress. Chris stumbles out behind her. Mark looks out at the bewildered crowd, takes the glass of champagne he dropped, and drinks it in one clean motion. He removes his wedding ring and tosses it into the empty glass. I had the fight I needed. It wasn't clean, it wasn't quiet, but it was honest. I lost a friend and a delusion, but I kept my fortune, my business, and my self-respect. I walked away from the flames I started, leaving her to deal with the ashes. Mark turns his back on the chaotic barn, walking alone towards the coastal sunset.